You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 53. I know we're a little later on a Friday night than usual. The laptop and the streaming software decided right at 7 that we needed to do an update, which is apparently major, but no worries. We're good. We're locked in. We're ready to go. As always, I appreciate everyone tapping into the show on a Friday night. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here with me live on episode 53. Super packed show. Hope you've had a blessed week. 6 days away from cutting that turkey. Hope you've called your family and friends and made all the plans that you need to, because time is running out. And if you're a fellow procrastinator like me, you know you got to get the holidays going. Make sure you like and share that stream wherever you're watching. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the bell, of course, so you never miss a post from the show. At the NFL with AJL, hashtag the NFL with AJL on all social media platforms. As always, that QR code in the corner of the screen. Give you every bit of social media and podcast content. If you can't find me, I promise you simply are not looking hard enough. Breaking news as Joe Burrow is injured and out for the season. Has Deshaun Watson officially pulled off the ultimate heist with the Cleveland Browns? My top 10 quarterbacks going into week 11 of the NFL season. My formal apology to Josh Dobbs, NFL week 11 picks, and much more here on the show. I want to hear from y'all in the chat, in the comments. Darby, what's good, man? You already know I can always count on you as we get into any show, but especially on a Friday night show. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, as the news did break today that Joe Burrow is out for the season with the wrist injury. And I want to address the thing off the top that everyone's talking about right now with the NFL investigation, or speculating that the Cincinnati Bengals held Joe Burrow off of the injury report based on things that they saw on social media, videos, and pictures. Of course, the post got taken down of what people thought was a soft cast on Joe Burrow's thumb. But we just need to completely stop this about the whole speculation of hiding Burrow's injury. I know it's easy to want to jump on a franchise like the Cincinnati Bengals, who's been under the limelight, been under the spotlight even before, and of course during the Joe Burrow era, when we talk about how they've taken care of him as a player. I know it's easy to want to rag on a franchise like this, but when you take a look at the actual facts of what happened in the game for the Ravens, it was the play right before Joe Burrow heard the pop when he threw the touchdown pass to Joe Mixon, and we see him grimacing in pain. Jadeveon Clowney sacked him on the offensive line. Of course, we look at that issue again. And when he goes down on Joe Burrow, Burrow lands on his wrist, kind of awkwardly rolls on it. And, Burrow even said in the post-game presser that he didn't even feel that happen at the time. Once he was looking back at the tablet and back at the replays, then he realized, oh, wow, it actually did roll up under me on that play. He had a lot of adrenaline. He had a lot of grit going. I give a lot of respect to also Zach Taylor in the post-game presser, literally telling people that what they saw with the compression sleeve on his arm on the plane, and when he was getting off of the plane, that it had nothing to do with this specific injury. You look at the fact that players, when they get to those high altitudes in the NFL, many players on many parts of their body, they wear compression sleeves to literally keep your muscles and your joints and ligaments from swelling when you go on high altitudes in the flight. Joe Burrow was being precautious, wearing it on his throwing arm. We know Joe Burrow hasn't dealt with any sort of arm or wrist injury before the season. It was the calf injury. It was the knee injury a few years ago. So for everyone out there trying to say that the Bengals might be doing him dirty in this situation, you got to know the facts. You got to put it out in front of you. Hats off to Joe Burrow, talking about how he someone was like, man, is that pain for you? What was that pain like? He was like, it's not really pain when you're on the field, man. You're just out there. It is what it is. This happens to plenty of players around the league. This is a risk of playing football in. And Burrow just being so cold-blooded about it, putting the facts out there, knowing that, hey, this is what happened. I've got to rehab. I got to go get healthy and continue on through the season. But now Jake Browning steps in as the backup quarterback. And of course, there's AJ McCarron backing him up as well in this instance for the Bengals. But you kind of want to ask the question of, all right, are there maybe some teams out there to where, or not teams, are there maybe some free agent quarterbacks out there to where the Bengals might pursue them and want to go sign them? And there's not many. Of course, we can throw some names out there and speculate all we want, but I do think the best situation for the Bengals is the guys that they have in the building, in Jake Browning and an A.J. McCarron. I mean, maybe they could go and sign Jake Luton if they wanted to. The Saints just released him a few weeks ago to just bring in a body at the quarterback position. Nick Foles could maybe come in, but he hasn't been really anything in his career past a backup quarterback. And of course, we can hope for the magical Nick Foles that came and took Philly to the Super Bowl, but that's realistically not going to happen. I've seen some names of maybe Ryan Tannehill getting released since Will Levis and Malik Willis are in the building. We know the trade deadline is passed, so it would have to be a release and a pickup from waivers. Maybe a Jimmy G since Aiden O'Connell has now been moved on to with Antonio Pierce. Maybe a Mac Jones because Bill Belichick has now benched him again. And who knows if it's going to be Bailey Zappi, Will Grier, Malik Cunningham, the special teams coach that's going to go out there for quarterback. We really don't know for the Patriots. But if there's a key thing between those three quarterbacks in Tannehill, Jimmy G, and Mac Jones, none of them can overcome adversity. None of them can overcome dysfunction. And that is what has made Joe Burrow so special. That is what has gotten him in the consistent top 3-2 rankings of quarterbacks in the NFL, dealing with a dysfunctional coach at the time when he came in, who has slowly gotten better over the years, dealing with a dysfunctional franchise when he walked in before taking them to the AFC title games in the Super Bowl, dealing with that dysfunctional, horrible, on average, 7th or 8th worst offensive line in the league in terms of sacks given up. Ryan Tannehill can't do that. We can maybe say that he kind of did in the year that, Vrabel had to use 90 players on his starting roster in order to get them through the season, and they did have the 1 seed in the AFC at that time. But Tannehill has to have things go correctly for him. I said Jimmy G wasn't going to be successful with the Raiders because he was going to have to overcome dysfunction and overcome a bad defense. I don't believe Jimmy G can do that. And Mac Jones, outside of his rookie year when the defense was good, he hasn't been able to overcome dysfunction either. And that's why the Bengals have such a special quarterback in Joe Burrow, because he's able to become anointed, overcome that dysfunction, do what he's got to do, win big games when things aren't going your way in Cincinnati. And that is why Jake Browning and I almost said Jake Luton, Jake Browning and A.J. McCarron, I think, are without question the best solutions or the best quarterbacks in this instance to fill in for Joe Burrow's injury. You got to at least appreciate the fact that Joe Burrow, last pass of the season for him was a touchdown pass that Joe makes, and he takes it in to score, in the game. But if we want to talk about a season prediction or kind of an outlook for the Bengals for the rest of this season, unfortunately, with them sitting at 5-5, just like the Buffalo Bills, they're going to be a 9th, 10th, maybe 11th seed in the AFC. I didn't look at the exact seedings. I just know off the top of my head, Buffalo is that 10th seed with the 5-5, record. But when you look at the schedule for the Cincinnati Bengals, I can see them beating the Colts and maybe splitting with the Steelers, but Kansas City, the Browns, the Vikings, and the Jags, right now, I feel like those are all losses as we talk about these two guys going forward for the backup quarterback in Cincinnati. And unfortunately, as much as this feels like razor blades coming out of my mouth right now, I think at best the Cincinnati Bengals win 2 more games this season. 2 more. At best, this is looking as it's like a 7-10, maybe an 8-9 football team. But I'm genuinely worried about Joe Burrow's durability now. I said it earlier in the year. I don't want Joe Burrow to become Andrew Luck, when the Bengals should have sat Joe Burrow early on in the year because he was dealing with the calf injury. When will the Bengals say that it's the second highest paid in NFL history behind Deshaun Watson? One of the biggest quarterback contracts in the league. You're willingly paying him that money. The dysfunction with Joe Burrow and really just that offensive line is absolutely horrendous. I didn't even get a chance to tally up all the sacks that Joe Burrow's taken in his career, but I'll break it down for you like this. Joe Burrow's rookie year, he had the 5th worst offensive line in terms of sacks given up the year he was drafted. He blew out his knee his rookie year. The 3rd worst offensive line the year he comes back from the injury, takes them to the Super Bowl. The 3rd worst O-line that year in terms of sacks given up. The year after, when they go back to the AFC title game, the 11th most sacks given up after spending all that money in the trenches on a Ted Karras, on an Alex Kappa. We remember talking about those moves for the Bengals at the time because they were huge. Joe Burrow needed to be protected. And then the 11th most this year. On average, he has, no joke, had the 7th to 8th worst offensive line in terms of sacks given up since he's been in the NFL. I don't want Joe Burrow to turn out like Andrew Luck. Blew out his knee because the O-line was bad, had the calf injury in preseason and in training camp, and now he's out for the year with the wrist. Jadeveon Clowney getting through and getting a sack on Burrow is really what ignited that. We knew he blew out his knee because the line absolutely collapsed for him at the time, and the calf is going to be the calf. But Joe Burrow's durability continues to concern me as we get deeper and deeper into his career, because I don't want to see him be a guy, unfortunately, like a Deshaun Watson that we're going to talk about soon, like an Andrew Luck that I've already mentioned a couple times in the show and in previous ones. He's such a generational talent, a guy that came out of LSU, defied the odds, and immediately provided success and prosperity for the Cincinnati Bengals. He has to be protected. He has to be better taken care of. And he has to be able to be available to go forward. And it's no question that he's the franchise quarterback. But the mismanagement of Joe Burrow is just disgusting at this point with the Bengals. You got Joe Burrow out for the year with his wrist injury. Just talking about this list of quarterbacks, reputable quarterback names that are out for the year due to injury. Joe Burrow with the wrist, Deshaun Watson with the shoulder, Kirk Cousins with the Achilles. You got Daniel Jones with the knee. You got Anthony Richardson with the shoulder injury. And then Aaron Rodgers, of course, within the first few plays of the season for the Jets, popping his Achilles. So it's not getting any easier on the quarterback position this year. Karen, what's up? Good to see you, girl. Appreciate you hopping in the show tonight. But it's ugly for Joe Burrow at this point, with the way that Cincinnati's not able to protect him, with the way that the durability is already becoming an issue, because we all love Joe Burrow. We want to see Joe Burrow go and do big things. And more than anything, we want to see Joe Burrow go and win that coveted Super Bowl for the city of Cincinnati. But now let's actually jump into the Bengals-Ravens recap from Week 11 on Thursday Night Football, last night's game. Thankfully, Joe Burrow's last drive of that game was, arguably one of the Bengals' best drives of the year. 12 plays, 82 yards, took up 7 minutes of the clock, touchdown pass to Joe Mixon, unfortunately, before Joe goes out with the injury. And then we have Jake Browning come in. His first drive was only 5 plays, 22 total yards, but they punted it to the Ravens. In the second half, Cincinnati scored an opening drive field goal, but then proceeded to go 3 and out on the following 3 drives after that. And Cincinnati's just still susceptible to missed tackles and explosive plays. We saw this in the Houston game. The Ravens had 7 plays of 20-plus yards in this game. Thursday actually marked the first time that the Bengals had allowed 34 points or more since Week 13 of the 2021 season against the LA Chargers. It was the 5th time this year the Bengals have allowed more than 150 yards rushing in a game. And let's not forget, this was a top 5 run defense in the NFL last year in 2022. And, thankfully the Ravens rebound in this game from the ugly blown lead that they've had in quite a few games this year, specifically and most recently to the Cleveland Browns. Lamar Jackson accounted for 318 plus total yards in this game, 2 touchdowns. Now, we did see him get banged up a little bit in this one too, in and out of the blue tent, something that is going to, make people fearful. The fans that are watching him, of course, everyone just involved with the Ravens and that loves Lamar, because we've seen him be a quarterback that cannot stay healthy as well. And we heard me in the offseason saying that he should have taken the money that he was originally offered, because without establishing anything outside of an MVP year that's kind of felt like a decline ever since, what are we supposed to do with that with Lamar Jackson? But you don't want to see him continue to get banged up a little bit. You don't want to see him in and out of the blue tent. I feel like Todd Monken has to protect him better with using the other running backs in the rotations more effectively. But they were 6 for 12 in the game, so 50% on third down. Zay Flowers, OBJ, really great games. OBJ had one of his biggest games in almost 2 seasons. But after Joe Burrow left, the Ravens scored 2 touchdown drives in between the Bengals punting right before they go into halftime. They brought the lead up to 11. Thankfully, Burrow was 11 of 7, 101 yards, and that touchdown before leaving the game. Browning, unfortunately, finished with 68 yards and that late touchdown pass in garbage time to Jamar Chase. But it's not like the Ravens didn't have to deal with any of their own adversity. Mark Andrews' first drive of the season, he goes out. We hear that he's officially out for the season. Lamar Jackson's favorite target, his number one target, his elite pass catcher that's been there for him ever since he's come into the league with the Ravens. And to know that they got that adversity handed to them right on the first drive, Lamar's able to turn around, connect to 9 other Ravens in the game for a total of 10 receivers that caught passes in this one. They ran the ball very well, averaging 5.1 yards per carry. Gus Edwards continues to be that workhorse, punching it in the red zone, one of the better goal line backs in the league, 2 touchdowns in this game. I thought the Ravens did a super good job, too, of when Jamar Chase was in the game, while Burrow was in the game, with Jamar Chase being involved in that offensive scheme. Jamar was limited to 2 catches on the night, and his final catch of the evening, of course, was the goal line touchdown, which was in garbage time. But do you really want to know how good this Ravens defense has been since they acquired Roquan Smith in that trade last year? Speaking of Roquan Smith, 21 tackles last week, 10 tackles this week. He's got 47 tackles in the last 4 games. Just an absolute monster, a machine getting to the ball carrier. that true leader, Georgia boy, with the Baltimore Ravens and on that defense. So in 2021, in the first 9 games in 2022, the Ravens were 19th in points allowed. In the 19 games they've had Roquan Smith, they're now second in the league. They were 24th in total yards allowed. Since getting Roquan Smith, they're first in the league. They were tied for 28th in passing touchdowns allowed. They're tied for first in the league since Roquan came over. They were tied for 14th in the league for rushing touchdowns allowed. They're first in the NFL in that span. They were 23rd in red zone touchdown percentage allowed. They are now first in that category. So the Roquan Smith value is absolutely undeniable. It was one of my favorite trades of last season, and seeing him continue to be able to buckle down next to a Patrick Queen with the secondary, with the pass rushers, with the vaunted defense, leading the league in sacks, being the best defense arguably in the NFL, of course, in terms of points per given up. But the Ravens have to deal with losing Mark Andrews. OBJ got banged up a little bit. We saw Lamar Jackson hobbling some, but none bigger, or I guess the biggest story, of course, is Joe Burrow being out for the season in this game. But y'all get in the chat, get in the comments, let me know what you think about Joe Burrow's injury as we just chopped that up on the show. We also broke down the Bengals and Ravens Thursday night football game. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my top 10 quarterbacks going into week 11 of the 2023 NFL season. We'll start with number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Pretty self-explanatory. I know he might not be playing the hottest football this year, but if there's any quarterback in the league that I trust with any throw on any drive in any situation, it's going to be Mahomes under that tutelage of Big Red. And we know what Patrick Mahomes is, and he's on pace to possibly win his 3rd MVP. And of course, with it being a back-to-back MVP if he does win it this year. Still going to give the respect to Joe Burrow at number 2. I know he just went out for the season with the injury on the wrist. But when we talk about a guy that has the head-to-head record against Patrick Mahomes, that can kind of mimic Patrick Mahomes in crunch time when he needs to be clutch, when he needs to make a big throw, when he needs to be that leader, who else do you look at but Joe Burrow? I understand you might want to put a Justin Herbert or maybe a Lamar or a Jalen Hurts here, and I'm fans of all of those guys. But if I'm talking about the second best quarterback in the league to go toe-to-toe with the future GOAT and Patrick Mahomes, it's going to be Joe Burrow. Speaking of Jalen Hurts, he will be my number 3 quarterback right now in the NFL season. Jalen Hurts is doing very well so far in the year. I didn't put it down here in the notes, but if I'm not mistaken, he's got 22 total touchdowns this year with less than 10 turnovers. Total touchdowns, rushing and passing, turnovers, interceptions, and fumbles lost combined. I don't hold regular fumbles to a quarterback's, I do hold regular fumbles to their game, but the fumbles that they lose, I feel like are the ones that means the most, because that's when you turn the ball over to the other team and give them a possession. But Jalen Hurts, the way he played last year in the Super Bowl, the way that he's still able to play this year, Jalen Hurts is still an elite quarterback. He's still quarterbacking the best team in the NFL in the Philadelphia Eagles, and no further explanation needed. Number 4, Jared Goff. Jared Goff is playing at an elite level this year with an elite team. Yes, an elite team in the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff's comfortable. He's got a great offensive line. He's got an aggressive head coach. He's got a guy that's changing the culture. He's got a defense behind him that is trying to support him week in and week out. He's got a ton of weapons. He looks like that former number 1 overall pick. He looks like that Jared Goff that really made that name for himself with the Los Angeles Rams before getting traded to the Lions. We all thought it was over for him. Jared Goff said, hold my beer. I'll show you guys what I've got and more. And you just look at Jared Goff with the eye test. It's undeniable. He's got the Lions in a great spot. And I think without question, Jared Goff is the 4th best quarterback in the league. And if you even wanted to go toe-to-toe, you might be able to put him up there 3rd above Hurts, because I know there's people out there that would say that. And maybe even with Burrow being hurt, you might put Jared Goff in that 2nd spot. Number 5 for me is going to be Lamar Jackson, the most electrifying player at the quarterback position. We know what he's capable of as well with his legs, but also through the air. Lamar is finally on pace for his first 4,000-yard passing season ever. He's already got more passing yards this season than he does last year. And Lamar is playing great football underneath the tutelage of Todd Monken, the OC coming in from Georgia. And Lamar's play this year is very stellar. I really like the way that Lamar is playing so far. I believe he can take this Ravens team to the heights that they want to go to. I know that they continue to get injury bugs, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Now Mark Andrews going out, but Lamar's got the Ravens clicking at an 8-3 record, just rolling over the Bengals 34-20. I know that's without Joe Burrow, but again, You look at the eye test on Lamar Jackson. You look at what this team's able to do so far through 11 games. You have to give him his respect. Justin Herbert coming in at the number 6 spot for me. A disappointing year for the Los Angeles Chargers. Justin Herbert continues to play his life out. Justin Herbert continues to be as clutch as he possibly can. Justin Herbert continues to have over 300 passing yards in an NFL game. It seems like week in and week out. But unfortunately, Justin Herbert, like I said on the last show, is 13-12 in the 25 games in his career that he's had over 300 passing yards. 13 wins, 12 losses. And I know that quarterback winning isn't necessarily a quarterback stat. It is and it isn't. You do have to have a defense behind you because you can only do so much at the position. But we know the gunslinger that Herbert is. We know the quarterback that he can and will be and should continue to be as the season goes on. Here's where I put the coveted rookie of CJ Stroud in at the 7 spot. He's going to be the number 7 quarterback for me right now in the NFL. And I think it's very fitting, as I realize it here live on the show, that I've got Stroud right behind Justin Herbert, a guy that he's been getting compared to a lot because of the way that his rookie season is going, because of the way that he's able to play at a high, really elite level in his rookie year. The defenses that he's went up against, I said it in the short that I dropped, he's 4-2 against the Falcons, the Steelers, the Saints, the Bucks, the Jags, and and the Bengals, of course. So all of those defenses, the schemes, the coordinators, notably with the Steelers and even the Bengals up against Lou Anarumo, you got to give CJ Stroud his credit. Again, one of 5 quarterbacks in NFL history to start a season with 2,600 plus passing yards, 15 touchdowns, and 2 or less interceptions. Mahomes, Breeze, Brady, Rodgers, and CJ Stroud. At number 8, this is where I'm going to put the turnover machine in Josh Allen at. We see on the year, he's got 26 I'm remembering the numbers. He's got 26 touchdowns, 19 on the 19 in the air, 7 on the ground, and he's got 15 turnovers in the NFL, 11 interceptions, 4 lost fumbles. We know that Josh Allen is a baller. We know that he can put up major numbers. We know that he can be one of the most unstoppable players in the league. We're going to talk about the actual firing of Ken Dorsey a little in depth later in the show. Continuing to switch him through offensive coordinators can really just make him fall further and further down this list. We see the 3 years under Brian Daboll is when Josh Allen was at his peak. They shouldn't have let Brian Daboll get away. I still love Josh Allen as a player. I still think he's a great quarterback in this league, but I'm going to have Josh Allen here. Is that the 9 spot? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nope. So that's going to be Josh Allen at the 8 spot. Number 9. 9 and 10 were pretty tough. And I'll even give you some honorable mentions right outside at 11 and 12. Number 9 is going to be Dak Prescott for me. Dak Prescott is, I think, one of the hardest quarterbacks for me to rank when it comes down to a quarterback's ranking list because I do think Dak is good. I don't think he's great. I think he has great moments. I don't think he's ever been elite in his career. Now, his showing against the Eagles was an elite performance, but I don't trust Dak to play like that week in and week out, and Dak doesn't play like that week in and week out. We've seen him fold against the 49ers. We saw him fold against the Cardinals. And whatever you want to say about how those games went, Dak is what he is. He's a good quarterback. Do I necessarily trust him to win a game on his arm? No. Do I trust him to win a big game when you need to? Not necessarily, but I won't deny his talent. I won't deny the way that he can play consistently up to his standard. And obviously the Cowboys love him for what he is. I couldn't just rightfully put Dak Prescott as a outside of the top 10 quarterback on this list. And then at number 10, I'm going to go Russell Wilson. 18 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I know he's only got 1,800 yards passing, but he's got 66% completion percentage. He's got a 101 passer rating. He already has more touchdown passes this year than he did all of last year. And him and Sean Payton are clicking. I dropped the short today. Sean Payton has fixed Russell Wilson. He's fixed the Denver Broncos. And it's not the Russ we're used to seeing. It's not the, crazy 3-4 throws a game, the 2 or 3 types of Cortland Sutton throws that he had against the Bills. Absolutely insane throw, a 3.2% chance to make that throw. That's not the type of Russ we're seeing. Sean Payton's keeping it simple. He knows that Russ doesn't have to be airing it out a ton because Sean is slowly starting to form the identity more of this team. And that might make people think that I'm crazy because I'm putting Russell Wilson as a top 10 quarterback, the number 10 quarterback in my list. But my eyes don't lie to me. Russ is playing great football at this moment. Russell Wilson is back, and he's a top 10 quarterback in this league. Here's where probably all the controversy goes. Adam, where is Tua? Where the hell is Tua on your list? I've got Tua at number 11. I like Tua a lot. I almost maybe even wanted to put Kyler Murray in here, but Kyler's coming back from the injury as well. Tua at number 11, Brock Purdy at number 12. I think Tua is more talented than Brock Purdy, which is why I put him ahead of him. And Brock's system that he's in with San Francisco is clearly what's giving him the advantage. But Brock Purdy doesn't play bad at the quarterback position. We've seen him now over a very nice sample size in a stretch of his NFL career with the Niners playing very high-level football. I think Tua can make a lot of throws on the field. I think Tua can be very smart, very great with his decision-making. But until Tua wins a big game against a reputable defense, I cannot put Tua Tagovailoa in the top 10 quarterbacks. And maybe you'd ask me, oh, well, how do you trust Dak or how do you trust Josh Allen to do that? Because I've seen them do it over the course of their career. No, I can't give you a specific game or a specific moment, but I know in the time that I've watched Tua in his big games and over his couple of seasons, he hasn't been able to do that for me. He can throw a lot of touchdowns. He can throw a small amount of interceptions. He can throw for a lot of yards. He can complete a lot of passes and have a high completion percentage. And I'm not saying that Tua is just a stat stuffer, but Tua is going to be number 11 for me. Brock Purdy at number 12. Y'all get in the chat, get in the comments. Let me know what you're feeling about episode 53 this evening. Deshaun Watson is out for the season with shoulder surgery set for him. He has a broken bone in his throwing shoulder. And for clarity, Deshaun Watson played 2.5 quarters versus the Ravens last week with a fractured shoulder and a high ankle sprain before the Browns were able to secure the win. Of course, we know the trade details for Deshaun Watson. The Browns received Deshaun Watson. The Texans got 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a 5th-round pick. This could possibly go down, as we've been talking about it for many weeks, a lot of speculation around the NFL. This could go down as the worst NFL trade of all time. One of maybe the worst trades in sports history. Deshaun Watson, in front of our eyes, is literally pulling off highway robbery, the ultimate heist. He's robbing the bank right in front of you and telling you to look the other way. He is bamboozling, hoodwinking, running amok the Cleveland Browns right now. With his $230 million guaranteed contract, he's already made 97.7, so screw it, we'll say $98 million, just shy of $100 million, over just 12 games played in the last 2 seasons. He played the last 6 of the season last year and did not look very good. He had to miss the first 11 due to his shenanigans. And this year, did not play in a whole lot of games as well. Really 6 games when you look at it. Deshaun Watson didn't play for a month. He was a healthy scratch a couple times. We saw some injuries giving him issues. And this also goes back to some concern for Deshaun Watson's durability as well. Deshaun Watson has made almost $8 million a game. $8 million a game to only play 12 games over the last 2 seasons. And we saw Deshaun Watson. We knew he was a generational quarterback. We knew he was very, very good when the Browns traded for him, but they traded for him after he did not see the NFL for 27 games. And I'll go back to the same adage. I'll sound like a damn broken record if I have to. It was a desperate move from a desperate franchise, really for a player that was desperate to get back in the league. I mean, let's just call it what it is. The Browns had not had a franchise quarterback to pair with that offense that they had built around Baker. They had built around him to support him. With Kevin Stefanski coming in and winning Coach of the Year and cleaning up Freddie Kitchens' mess, they needed a quarterback, one of which they thought was Deshaun Watson after missing the field for a year, all of his allegations. It looked like he didn't even step on an NFL field the way he's played for most of the games with the Cleveland Browns. And it's horrible. It's horrible to know that the Browns, it was like when I said it with the Jets earlier this year. The Jets had worked so damn hard getting Robert Saleh from the Niners, going and drafting Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, getting all those young defensive players, and just rebuilding that culture, getting what felt like a new Jets era ready to emerge. And I talked to plenty of Jets fans. I watched plenty of Jets fans on some of my favorite shows. They had very high, very, very high hopes for that. And knowing that they were then chasing Aaron Rodgers, I'm like, hell no. Don't turn around and walk away, run away. But I started buying into the hype more. I thought they were really going to do big things. And of course, they see Aaron Rodgers go and trade his Achilles or tear his Achilles. But I feel the same way about the Browns. You have so many dumpster fires, 2 straight years of Hugh Jackson. Got a lot of respect for him. Had him on the What Off Season podcast. If y'all been sticking with me for that long, great interview. One of the most tight, concise interviews ever. Anyways, did not win a lot of games there. Did not win even 5 games in his 2 years with the Cleveland Browns, with the 32 games that he coached. Then Freddie Kitchens comes in, gets fired after 1 year. So then they decide to bring in Kevin Stefanski. And Stefanski, I think, is a solid coach. People were calling for his job before this year. People were calling for his job potentially last year. And I'm like, why? He dealt with a lightning in a bottle Baker Mayfield that I thought was never, gonna really hold up to that number 1 pick status. Then Baker comes back down to life. Then they get rid of Baker, send him to the Panthers to trade for Deshaun Watson. He misses the first 11 games of the year. They have all of their, backup quarterbacks hopping in and out of the lineup, playing through those 11 games. Then he gets Deshaun Watson back, who looks really bad over the last 6 games of last season, and then has looked average, and at most times below average this NFL season. So I've got mercy and grace for Kevin Stefanski. I still think he's got more time. Yes, the record has went down every year, but the team has showed you more promise in the time with Stefanski than anybody else. So now here they're just going to go again with Dorian Thompson-Robinson stepping in, with PJ Walker as his backup, and Kevin Stefanski will continue with the top defense in the league to try to make this happen. But as of right now, what else do we have to think other than this is the worst NFL trade of all time? But if any team would do it, it would be the Cleveland Browns. And now they will sit here and contemplate this money that they've paid him as, again, 12 games over the last 2 seasons. He's made $98 million, almost $8 million a game. I even wanted to be so petty to break it down into snap counts and to break it down into passes thrown to understand how much Deshaun Watson has really made in his small amount of time on that 5-year contract that the Browns gave to him. And now this Browns defense, first in yards allowed at 243, first in passing yards allowed at 151, fourth in points allowed at 17, and tied for 4th in sacks at 30, and tied for 5th in interception with 9. This defense is now going to have to go forward with DTR, who I've got a lot of respect for. I enjoyed his rookie profile coming into the draft. I took a look at some of his tape. I enjoyed the way he played in college. But the remaining schedule that they're going to have to go forward with, they've got the Steelers at home. I've got the Steelers winning that game. We'll have our Week 11 picks coming later on. They've got the Broncos on the road. They've got the Rams on the road, the Jags and the Bears at home, the Texans on the road, the Jets at home, and then the Bengals on the road. So I've got them losing to the Steelers. Broncos and Browns. Broncos are at home, so I'll take the Broncos there. I could see the Browns beating the Rams. I really could. So I've got them 1-2 in this stretch. Probably losing to the Jags 1-3. I think they could beat the Bears, so that's 2-3. They'll lose to the Texans on the road. That's 2-4. Jets, Browns. Final game of the season. I'll take the Browns there. And then, the last game of the season, the top 2 highest paid quarterbacks are out for the year. Browns at Bengals. I think I'll take the Bengals in that game. I will. So what is that? They'll beat the Rams, the Bears, and the Jets. So they're going to win 3 of their final 8 games on the year. Unfortunately, this is just a 9-8 football team at this point, which I hate to say that. I really do. Or they're going to finish out as a 9-8 football team, because I said it coming into the year. Don't sleep on the Browns. Don't sleep on them. They're going to be in the AFC playoffs. If Deshaun Watson returns to that form, or even 75, 80% of what he was with that defense, with that coaching, with that offense, all those weapons, one of the most loaded rosters in the NFL, one of the best front sevens, one of the best defenses, they're going to be a great team. They're going to be a top team. I can't remember where I had them in my preseason power rankings coming into the year, but now they have to deal with this. Now they have to venture more games without their top paid quarterback. And this is the price you have to pay. When you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. I've said it all the time. If you play stupid games, you're going to win stupid prizes. You ask dumb questions, you're going to get dumb answers. And that's just another instance of this here with the Cleveland Browns. I hope they can figure it out with Deshaun Watson. I hope they can figure it out with their star quarterback situation because they've worked really hard to get this franchise where it's at now. And going forward is just going to tell us a lot about this football team. I want to get on this podcast and personally apologize to Josh Dobbs. I said after the Vikings traded for Josh Dobbs from the Arizona Cardinals that they would not be able to rise to the occasion and honestly just be able to play good football and go as far as I thought they could when they were heating up. They started 1-4. They're now at a, I want to say a 5-4 record, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. I just always want to be accurate on those numbers. Yep. Oh, no, excuse me. They are now a 6-4 football team. So they are they won 5 in a row. Yeah, the Vikings have won 5 football games in a row. Last time they lost to the Chiefs was October 8th. They could have beat the Chiefs in that game as well. They lost 27-20. I wanted to personally apologize to Josh Dobbs for saying that he wasn't going to rise to the occasion because that's all he's done. All Josh Dobbs has done since getting fresh off the plane, coming right out of the NFL trade deadline, all he's done is rise to the occasion. All he's done is ball out and play great football. I mean, for Christ's sake, I didn't know Josh Dobbs was second in the NFL in rushing yards by a quarterback. But I damn sure witnessed that against my New Orleans Saints. If you watched episode 52 on Tuesday, I thrashed New Orleans for the way that they were embarrassed by the Vikings and the Pastronaut and Josh Dobbs. What Josh Dobbs has done plugging in for the Minnesota Vikings is impeccable. This is everything you hope that a quarterback that you bring in really at any point to your team to be new, but especially whether you pick him up off waivers, whether you trade for him, whatever the case is, coming in as a backup, this is what you hope that your quarterback does. And Josh Dobbs has done nothing but be fantastic. Against the Falcons, fresh off the trade deadline, 67% completion, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 102 passer rating. On the road in Atlanta versus my Saints at home in Minnesota, 67.6% completion, 268, a touchdown, no interceptions, and a 101.1 passer rating. The way that Josh Dobbs has taken control of this offense with not knowing really a quarter of the plays, probably when he was playing the Falcons, to having to be shown the locker room with his home opener for him with the Vikings against my Saints, the way he sees the field, his decision-making, his mobility, his accuracy. But I'm also going to sit here and give the respect to the fact that I actually had the pleasure of watching Josh Dobbs play at Tennessee, not in person, but I remember Josh Dobbs and Alvin Kamara. I remember the way that they were able to slice up defenses. Dobbs was very mobile. Kamara was doing what he had to do, especially again in the game against Georgia. That's the biggest game that I remember of Josh Dobbs actually making a major impact against a top team. And ironically, Georgia and Tennessee play again this weekend. Josh Dobbs, very talented in college, extremely talented in college. And when he got drafted to the league, bouncing around with the Steelers, bouncing around with the Browns. By the way, if you didn't know, Josh Dobbs was the backup quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, who just lost to Deshaun Watson. RIP Browns fans. I'm so sorry to have to break the news to you like that. But Josh Dobbs with this Vikings team, bouncing around with all these other teams, being so talented in college, inserting himself into a hot Vikings team who has a lot of playoff aspirations right now. They're great without Justin Jefferson. They haven't lost a game since Justin Jefferson has went out. Justin Jefferson's questionable for the game Sunday, so we'll see what happens as he's possibly inched back into the spotlight. But there's no need to rush him. Jordan Addison is balling. TJ Hawkinson, balling. Absolutely crushed the Saints on the receiving side of the football. And, the reason I didn't think Josh Dobbs was going to be so good with the Vikings is I was like, one, he's, trade deadline quarterback moving over. Like, that doesn't usually pan out well. Two, he was with the 1-8 Arizona Cardinals. How much was he really going to be able to do? But when you're with the Cardinals, one of the worst rosters, one of the worst teams in the league. Now they've got Kyler back, so it feels a little better. But under a rookie head coach and Jonathan Gannon, like, what more are you able to do? I mean, you got Hollywood Brown and James Conner. What more are you really going to do? Oh, and Zach Ertz. If Zach Ertz still over there? Yeah, he is. Zach Ertz still over there. And so he's got Zach Ertz as well. And there's some, defensive what's it called? There's some defensive presence a little bit, really, if any, over there. But you got to give it to him. Dicing up the Saints, beating the Falcons, getting whatever he wanted, wherever he wanted in both of these games. And the season outlook with Josh Dobbs now in terms of record and playoff depth. They're a 6-4 football team right now. They got the they've got the Broncos on the road, Sunday Night Football prime time at 8:20. I've got the Broncos winning that football game. Let me actually go to my notes real quick here because I'm kind of alluding to the picks. Let's see. I've got the Broncos winning that game. I want to take the Vikings and Josh Dobbs. I really do because they've been impressive, but it was the Falcons and the Saints at the end of the day that Josh Dobbs went up against a couple of reeling teams right now in the NFL. And I know we could turn around and say, oh, the Broncos barely beat the Packers. Sky Moore dropped a pass in the game versus the Chiefs, and the Bills had 12 men on the field. So really, should they have won, any of those games? Well, they did. Denver's at home. So I'm going to take Denver in this game. I think they'll beat the Vikings, I think they'll beat the Bears at home, so they're going to be 1-1. They'll beat the Raiders 2-1. I honestly think they'll beat the Bengals now, so that's 3-1. I think they'll lose to the Lions, even though it's at home. No, I take that back. I think they'll beat the Lions at home, so it'll be 4-1. I think they take care of the Packers with probably 5-1, and then I think they'll drop to the Lions on the road last game of the season. So I see them going 5-2 to finish out the year over these next 7 games, which is going to give them an 11-6 record, and they will without question be in the NFC playoff mix. And I just want to go look at the playoff seeding right now because as the time just gets closer and closer, the playoff picture is slowly forming. The Super Bowl in 2024 being in Vegas. I know, don't remind me, NFL, your tickets are outrageously expensive. So the Vikings are the 7 seed right now. If they were to finish at 11-6, I think it's going to be tough because the Lions are winning that division. But, you looked at the fact that they're going to have to go through the Lions twice, and then they're more than likely going to see the Lions in the playoffs. I think they'll be the 5th seed for sure. Maybe the 6th seed because the Cowboys are 6-3. The Seahawks are 6-3 as well. But I've got the Vikings being an 11-6 football team with Josh Dobbs leading the rest of the way. And should Josh Dobbs be the next in line with Kirk Cousins' deal being up? We know Kirk Cousins is not going to be on that base salary for the next couple of seasons. He's technically not an he is an unrestricted free agent in 2024, it looks like on here. It goes from 2027 to, 2028 maybe, it looks like, that he's a restricted free agent. 2024 to 2025 years automatically void if they would like. There's a full no trade clause. He had the fully guaranteed deal when he signed the 1 year, $35 million a year. And Kirk Cousins is 35. Great quarterback. He would have been in my top 10 quarterback rankings if he would have still been healthy for the season, but we know Josh Dobbs is in for a couple of weeks. Now, I still think Dobbs right now is playing at top 15 quarterback level. I mean, realistically, you got him, you got Trevor Lawrence, some people that I didn't include there on that top 10 quarterback list. And Trevor Lawrence is just very, very underwhelming this year. There was a big reason why he wasn't on that list. I know y'all are going to come after me in the comments for that as well. But I think the Vikings should definitely consider, depending on how Josh Dobbs plays out the rest of the year, and the level that he's played at is at a level that I'm assuming he's going to play out over these next 7 games, which is why I think they're going to go 5-2. But Josh Dobbs being next in line, it's not unreasonable. He's 28 years old. He's 7 years younger than Kirk Cousins. Again, Kirk Cousins, good quarterback, great quarterback at times. Primetime, we saw him have the masterclass against the Chiefs, but we've also seen Kirk in big games more times than not shrink when he doesn't need to, but that doesn't mean that Kirk isn't a good quarterback and he can go out and get you wins. He can lose you some games. He won't lose you a lot of games, but he might not necessarily fight you back into him to get the throw that you absolutely need, because we know that some of those one-score games, or a lot of those one-score games, can really be kryptonite for Kirk Cousins. But the way Josh Dobbs is playing right now, he's going to be cheap. You probably wouldn't even have to pay him. I mean, NFL world's probably going to call for him to make at least 30, 35 a year, which you just paid Kirk 35, but look at the level Kirk was playing. But for God's sake, if Daniel Jones can get $160 million over 4 years, I know it's the Giants paying him, but still, I'd like to think that Josh Dobbs can earn himself at least a 1-year contract, if not maybe a 2-year contract. We know Jaron Hall is in the building. Some people are very hype about him. Who was, is Kellen Mond? Man, y'all making me forget all these quarterbacks that come out. Nah, Kellen Mond is with the Colts, so never mind. But we remember they drafted Kellen Mond. A lot of people were hype about him. But the way that Josh Dobbs is playing now, the mobility, the accuracy, the team is already buying into him. The team loves him. The team has already built a lot of energy around him. So it's almost like, why would you go out and look anymore if Josh Dobbs basically comes in this year in the back half of the season after the trade deadline and gives you what Geno Smith gave you last year? Because that's kind of the trajectory I'm seeing here. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be elite, but it'll be enough for you to get in, and it'll be enough to get you into the playoffs. Maybe win you a playoff game, not necessarily lose you a football game. And that's what this feels like here for Josh Dobbs. It feels like a resurgence of his career, and I'm here for it. A guy that was very, very talented in Tennessee, a guy that is pretty talented now in the NFL. We saw he played his ass off against the Cowboys when they beat them earlier in the year. And I think Josh Dobbs deserves a chance. He's 2-0 on this run. I think he's got more. The Vikings should take a look at him, possibly give him a chance. Because are you going to go look any further? Really, are you? Take a little note out of the Seahawks book, at least with Geno Smith. Are you really going to go look any further when this guy just came in off the deadline? He's maybe not even going to cost you a lot in general once you sign him. It depends on how long you want the reins to be handed over to him for. Do I think he's your franchise guy? No. Maybe the Vikings feel different after the last 7 games of the year. Maybe the Vikings feel different as they go into the offseason and give him that big money. They want to commit to him for the next 2 to 4 years. Drafting a quarterback is still a priority for the Vikings, I believe. Maybe it's not for them because of Kirk. He's also coming back off that Achilles. But I think Josh Dobbs does deserve a chance here. This has been episode 53 of the NFL with AJL. I love and appreciate everybody for tapping into the show, whether you're live right now, whether you're going to catch it on podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you get the live content as I'm streaming. Please make sure to like and share the show. Also, subscribe for me on YouTube. Hit the bell so you never miss a post. Hashtag the NFL with AJL, at the NFL with AJL on all social media and podcast platforms. And I promise you guys, if you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. Hope you're having a blessed Friday as Thanksgiving is creeping up on us. And as always, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, Buy and Sell with AJL is the team you need on your side. They've got you covered. Whether you're a buyer, seller, investor, maybe even want to look to rent a place out, get some tenants, get some leases drawn up for your property. They'd love to help you with that. Drop your name and your email down in the comments of the live or DM them on social media at Buy and Sell with AJL. Get on their exclusive newsletter, and you can also take advantage of some of the AI that they've put into the business as well to really benefit their clients. Like I said, buyers, sellers, investors. Go ahead and contact Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. I wanted to dig into the Ken Dorsey firing some. I mentioned it on episode 52 earlier that I caught myself saying, I kind of agree with it. On episode 52 I did. And now we see the Bills weren't afraid to rip the Band-Aid off. 10 games in, they're 500, sleepwalking through games offensively. Josh Allen is regressing, even though he can give you points, he can give you scores, but he's also going to give you some turnovers. So go ahead and bake those into Josh Allen's game. But was this the right move, considering the offensive stats, but also sleepwalking in games time after time? Those were some games that they were sleepwalking. They sleptwalk against the Broncos, sleptwalk against the Bengals. They were doing it against the Giants, which was crazy. That was freaking 5 games ago. I mean, to the Patriots, they lose to them. Very close against to the Bucks. They just have no sense of consistency when it comes to actually playing in these games, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Josh Allen is now on his 3rd offensive coordinator, with Joe Brady being the interim in his first 6 years. We know Brian Daboll from his rookie year all the way to 2021 came in, supplemented very well there, getting Josh Allen to his peak, getting him out of that rookie slump that he looked so horrible in. Then he escapes, goes on to be the head coach of the New York Giants, and they should have never let Brian Daboll go. But I get it. This is an offensive-minded league. A lot of offensive coordinators are getting head coaching jobs. Brian Daboll goes on to win Coach of the Year. And I mean, we look at Kevin O'Connell, OC, getting hired as head coach. We see Kevin Stefanski, OC, getting hired as head coach. Brian Daboll, same instance. You know, we're waiting on it with Bieniemy. Ben Johnson's probably going to have a head coaching job. This is the league of offensive-minded coaches at the head coaching position. And that's why Brian Daboll did so well with Josh Allen. But now, again, Josh Allen, third offensive coordinator with Joe Brady in his first 6 years. And if they go and hire another one next year, he will be on his fourth offensive coordinator in 7 years. Under Ken Dorsey this year, would you happen to know that the Bills were third in EPA per play offensively, first in success rate? If you don't know what success rate is, it is a simple measurement of literally how successful an NFL offense is when they call a certain play compared to a certain defense. Were you successful? Did you win that play? No offense in the NFL was better than the Buffalo Bills at that, statistically. They were seventh in scoring drive rate as well. Scoring drive rate of how many drives you get the football, how many of those drives do you score a touchdown or field goal on, or accumulate points, more than likely a touchdown or a field goal. The Bills were seventh best in that department. And he was fired little after midway through the year, 10 games in. And I said this on episode 52, and I'll bring it right back around. Sean McDermott fired Leslie Frazier. Sean McDermott had public disagreements in the media with Brian Daboll. Sean McDermott hired and fired Rick Dennison and Ken Dorsey. So maybe it's not them. And shout out Jordan from Stuff About Sports, one of my favorite shows out there. Him and what's his co-host name? Bert. Jerm is a big, major Bills fan up there on the north side. He loves his Buffalo Bills, but he damn sure hates Sean McDermott. He's ready for Sean McDermott to go, and I don't blame him. Because when you've got a caliber of team like the Buffalo Bills defensively, all of the names that they have there, offensively, with some weapons, they definitely could use more. I've been calling for that. With the just cannonball quarterback in Josh Allen. I mean, and this is what Sean McDermott's able to do. I mean, it's just you see the way it makes me react on camera because it's tough. I've been a victim to it. Saints for 4 straight years, one of the best teams in the league. Most wins without a Super Bowl appearance in a 4-year stretch. I'm not saying the Bills are going to do that, but the Bills have been in these Super Bowl talks for seasons now. I picked them 2 straight years ago to the Super Bowl, last year and the year before, and it didn't happen. We look at teams like the Chargers who get loaded year after year after year. Great quarterback, great defense, very solid offensive weapons, a ton of veterans too. Not even an old roster, just veterans that have played in the league for, 5, 6, 7 years. And you can't get it done. Brandon Staley, defensive-minded head coach. The Bills had no problem firing their offensive coordinator who had them clicking statistically as one of the best offenses in the league. Now I understand you go look on paper, 24 points, 22 points, 24 points, 25 points, 14 points, 20, 46, 37, 38, and 22. But 37, 38, and 48 was the Raiders, the Commanders, and the Dolphins. That's after giving up or, only putting up 16 in the opener where they got the punt returned on them for the touchdown. 22-16 losing to the New York Jets. So, you look on paper and you see some of these big games. It's like outside of those big games where they blew those teams out, the Bills haven't put up over 30 points in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. The Bills have not put up over 25 points. Over 25 points in that stretch. Since they dropped 48 on the Dolphins' head in week 4, after the Dolphins dropped a 70 burger on the Broncos, the Bills can't even score 4 touchdowns a game. And I'm not trying to sit here and drag the Bills, but when you want to think of how they looked internally versus just these stats here, that's probably what they see. That's great that you can blow out the Raiders and the Commanders and the Dolphins. Nobody's really expecting those teams to do a whole lot. And yes, I included the Dolphins in that because they still can't beat good football teams. And they're going to have to go through that gauntlet on the AFC. And even if they get to the Super Bowl, it's going to be the Eagles. It's going to be the Niners. It's going to be the Lions. They're sure as hell not beating any of those teams. So, I mean, it's tough. It's tough because you see it season in and season out. You want the Bills to be better. And Sean McDermott, as a defensive-minded head coach, he's got to go. He's got to go. He's got way too much talent on this team, way too much. And, you got to look for somewhere to place the blame. You got to, I guess, have somebody lose their job. There's got to be some sort of result or some effect, right? Maybe it was a major embarrassment for them to lose to the Denver Broncos. Who knows? 12 men on the field, but no, we're gonna fire our OC. That's what we're gonna do. We're only gonna lose by 2 in this football game, but we're gonna fire our OC. Yeah, we lost at home in this game, but still gonna fire the OC. So, is this what they want for Josh Allen? Do they want to continue to have offensive coordinator after offensive coordinator? Basically, every 2 years, Josh Allen's getting a new offensive scheme that he's got to fit into. You notice in that stretch from 2018 to 2021, Josh Allen did nothing but get better every year. And then Brian Daboll leaves and he declines. Now, I'm not going to say he's, becoming washed or regressing majorly, but is he playing at the level he was playing at? Absolutely not. He was not doing that at all. And I would like to believe with the amount of money that Josh Allen is making, that the Bills and the fans don't want this for their quarterback. Because we've seen quarterbacks over the years in the league, different head coaches. I mean, hell, Baker Mayfield, different head coaches, different offensive coordinators, different offensive game plans and schemes. It already takes a lot of time to learn a scheme and a playbook as is. And then you're going to go and switch that up on them? That's not a recipe for success for Josh Allen. And this is where I have empathy for Josh Allen in this aspect. Brian Daboll was clearly the best, and they shouldn't have let him get away. Is Bill Belichick actually done with the New England Patriots after this season? These are some speculations that I've seen circling around the NFL, especially, when you see ESPN breaking their news, when you see, people talking about the Patriots. They're now 2-8 going into the bye week. I had them 4-6 going into the bye week. Are they on their? Yeah, they're on their bye. They don't play again until November 26th. That's when Saints and Falcons play. I'll be at that game, so that's gonna be a lot of fun. But I mean, yeah, Bill Belichick possibly being done with the Patriots after this season. And we've seen a lot of talk about that. We've seen some people say that Bill Belichick's next team is already decided. Robert Kraft is not very happy with Bill Belichick. And I don't even want to sit here and go through the numbers and the record and how the how the offense and defense has been since Tom Brady left. Because we know as of right now, Tom Brady is winning. He has won the divorce. The argument is swinging in his favor. And when you go and look at how the Patriots are performing this year, they have the second worst offense in the NFL at 14 points per game. Only the New York Giants are worst with 11.8. So we'll give them 12. When you go look at the defensive stats on the year for the New England Patriots, I mean, still middle of the pack, giving up 326.5 yards per game. But it's the points that I like to take a look at the most. And the New England Patriots are the 23rd offense. I had to make sure that was correct. I didn't feel like it was right in my notes for some reason. They're the 23rd ranked offense in the NFL, scoring 24 points per game. Now, ironically enough, they're the 23rd ranked defense in the NFL, in terms of points per game. Now, their defense is better than the Chargers, it's better than the Dolphins, it's better than the Commanders, the Broncos, which is no shock. But the Patriots are a defensive-minded culture. So in that aspect, you would want, you hope that they're continuing to put forward, good defensive outings. And, just with that defensive culture, with Bill Belichick being that defensive-minded head coach. But we know that the Patriots have been lost, one, ever since Tom Brady left, but two, ever since Mac Jones' rookie year, which was their best year after Tom Brady left. They go 10-7 record under Mac Jones. He figures out just a couple weeks before the season that they're cutting Cam Newton, moving on from him. They want Mac Jones as a starter. And they make the playoffs with a 10-7 record. Unfortunately, get blown out by the Buffalo Bills, 51-10 in that playoff game. And it felt like things were never the same since. Y'all have heard me talk about how Bill Belichick has not drafted any reputable players within the last decade. One of them was a punt returner. One of them was a punter, and another was a punt returner in terms of all pros or Pro Bowls that Bill Belichick has actually been responsible for drafting. This offense has been stale, uninteresting, and just downright incapable of scoring and making good ball games, actually having good outings, being competitive, scoring 21 points, 4 points, 28 points, 31 points like you need to in the NFL. I feel like the bare minimum in today's league, you got to be able to score 3 touchdowns and kick a field goal. 24 points is the minimum. That's what you have to put up in this league if you want to hang with some of the offensive juggernauts and really just understand how offensive this league is really becoming. They are outmatched by almost everyone in the NFL talking about the Patriots. Very minimal talent, one of the most bare rosters in the league. But it's not a surprise to me. They were projected at 7.5 wins coming into the year. I had them going 5-12. They're projected to do worse than that possibly. They are a 2-8 football team holding one of the top picks in the NFL draft. I had them 4-6 in my preseason predictions going into the bye week, but they are 2 games worse than that at the 2-8 record. And Bill Belichick's always had a lot on his plate, being the GM, being the head coach, but it's time to let that go. And more importantly, it's more than likely time to move on from Bill Belichick. But I understand you might want to say, well, Adam, how the hell can they do that? He won 6 Super Bowls. This franchise is not this franchise without Bill B and Tom Brady. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Did he get to coach the greatest player of all time in football history in Tom Brady? Yes, no question about that. But Bill Belichick is a defensive-minded head coach that can't build a competitive roster post the Tom Brady era, is not drafting very well. And with him also having it on his plate of being a GM, it's not a recipe for success. It's not, because you have to be able to draft and develop and find that type of talent on the offensive side of the ball, but more importantly on the defensive side of the ball as well. And yeah, I like the Christian Gonzalez pick. That's great, but like, where's the other talent? I mean, yeah, there's Ramondre Stevenson. We got Ezekiel Elliott. They've got Ezekiel Elliott. Actually, hell, I have their depth chart pulled up here. I was just naming off a few names. There's Devon Gottschall, there's Dietrich Wise. But I mean, hell, there's Kyle Duggar, there's a Jabril Peppers, but like, are those really guys that are high levels of talent that are going to get the Patriots to where they want to go? I mean, there's Devontae Parker, Kayshon Boutte, Tyquan Thornton, Juju Smith-Schuster. Maybe you can give some credit to Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki, but it's like, damn, where is the offensive sustenance to this team? Where's the substance of this football team? Where's the offensive presence of this football team under Bill Belichick? And to make matters even worse, and to really show you that he's got his hands full, the fact that he benched Mac Jones for the 3rd time this year, he's lost all confidence in him. He knows that Mac Jones is not his guy, and I still find it insane to this day that people are like, oh, is Mac Jones the next Tom Brady? Don't kid yourself. Do not kid yourself in that aspect, because he's not. I get it. He might look like him. He might throw like it. No, whatever. First of all, no and no. But second of all, it's not even close. Don't try to compare a GOAT to a guy that was great at Alabama and yes, was taken in the 1st round. When when Bill drafted Mac Jones, I was like, okay, this could be decent. Cam Newton was still in at the time, and then boom, we figured out that Mac Jones is in. But Mac Jones played well. He did. 10-7 record. He also had talent around him too. And now at this point in time, he does not have a great defense behind him, which once was in New England under Bill Belichick's watch. He does not have good offensive talent or players with him. Never necessarily been the highest pedigree in New England. It was just the coaching and the schemes, and the players just knew the Patriot way there. They knew what was going to happen. But to show you that they are so deprived talent-wise and offensively, and the fans are so starved, the fact that they've called for Malik Cunningham, a wide receiver, to play quarterback shows how bored they are and how deprived of talent, not bored, how deprived of talent they are more than anything. You saw some Malik Cunningham in the preseason, and he was pretty shifty. He had a lot of electricity to him. He looked great in the couple of snaps that he had in the multiple positions that he did, and we've seen Malik Cunningham playing, over the course of this season. But to just encapsulate and know that Bill Belichick now has his fans of that franchise, who is the most decorated in NFL history, or tied with the Steelers, of course, is calling for a wide receiver to be their quarterback, because that's the only sense of juice or electricity that they're going to have on this team. they've got to go offensive minded. They have to go offensive minded at the head coaching position. They have to take a look at a Ben Johnson, a Frank Smith, an Eric Bieniemy, an offensive coordinator from a highly producing offense in the NFL. Hell, no. God, no, not Matt Nagy. I'm over here thinking about the Chiefs. Hell no, not Matt Nagy. But he's doing good next to Andy Reid. I'll give him that credit. No question about that. I'm not gonna take away from Matt Nagy's success with the Chiefs this year because I'm sure he's thoroughly enjoying what's happening over there in Kansas City. But it's got to be an offensive minded head coach. And I know I say that for a lot of teams, but the NFL's not, excuse me, the NFL is hard, but the recipe is simple. You just have to find the recipe in said coaches and players. Go get you a star quarterback and chase greatness within the first 3 years because after you pay him, you're going to be strapped for cash. Get you an offensive minded head coach and go get you a top pass rusher. And more times than not, you're probably going to be competing for the NFL playoffs. And that's all the Patriots have to do. And I understand Bill Belichick, been there for a long time, built this into a dynasty. And he's also just 20 wins or so away from being the winningest head coach in history. And, I really ask, would someone go out and hire a 70-plus-year-old Bill Belichick to come in and be their head coach? Would he mesh well with young players? Would he be able to have that toolage over, let's just speak hypothetically, a Josh Allen, a Jalen Hurts, a Tua, a Burrow? I don't think so. I don't know if those guys are as successful underneath him. And again, I've got a lot of respect for Bill. We know what he's been capable of in the NFL. But times move past him. You're going to eventually have to start taking a look at Mike Tomlin when we talk about some of these oldie goldies in the league. I even said it as a Saints fan a couple years ago. You got to eventually start taking a look at Sean Payton when you just keep having these things sputter out in front of you. Bill Belichick's been good for a long time, but now it's been a lot of mediocrity and average since Brady's left. Mike Tomlin's been good in his time, but it's been a lot of 8-8, 9-8, 8-9 seasons. Yeah, you go 11-0, you get in the playoffs, but you get wiped in the first round. And I get it. You've been to a couple Super Bowls, won a couple Super Bowls. I understand that. But the NFL is a what have you done for me lately league because the league changes so quick. I mean, what, every 2 years, you feel like there's a team coming out of the woodworks that you didn't expect? The Lions this year, the Texans this year, the Bengals a couple years ago. It's all about what have you done for me lately? And with those teams getting their spotlight, it's because of what they've done lately. And that is what Bill's going to have to answer to as the Patriots continue to go on through the Bill Belichick era. I don't think anyone would hire Bill. And I personally don't even think that Bill would even want to coach for another team because of what he built in New England. Now, yes, we know he got fired by the Browns. We understand that he's chasing Don Shula for over 320 wins in his career. But will Bill be able to hit that with the way that he's got his mental locked in on the NFL game? And that's why I think, it's moved past him. Let's get into week 11 picks. I know it's been a long, long time since I've picked some games on the show. Actually, week 6, I believe, was the last time we actually, did I have a week 6 graphic? I don't know. I can't remember because I know we just did picks a few weeks ago. But anyways, we're back. NFL Week 11 picks, where the NFL with AJL picks every game from the 2023 NFL season. I am 95-53 on the year with a 64% hit rate. I went 9-5 last week. And week 9, your boy was 12-1. CJ Stroud ruined my perfect week against the Bucs, but that's okay. That's perfectly okay. I'm not perturbed by that at all. I would have taken the Baltimore Ravens to win last night's game, so that's going to put me 1-0 on the week. Ravens being at home, understanding how hot they've been. Yes, of course, they've, blown some leads in the fourth quarter, but the Bengals injury report coming in was, a little concerning for me. I knew T. Higgins was out. There was another player that was out for the game that I really thought had an impact, but I can't place it off the top of my head. But nonetheless, I would have had the Ravens. Now we've got the Steelers at the Browns. I would take the Steelers in this game. Now, Pittsburgh won at home in week 2, but there's no Minkah Fitzpatrick, and there's a limited Cam Hayward. I know Cam Hayward's only played 4 games this year. So, it really could go either way, but I think what it comes down to is Kenny Pickett has seen this Browns defense before, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson has not seen this Steelers defense The Browns are at home, though. So, again, you could go either way. I'm going to lean the Steelers here, though. DTR's first game against that Steelers defense. And now, thankfully, he is at home, but I'll still take Pittsburgh. I'm going to take the Lions over the Bears. The Lions over the Bears. Very simple, very self-explanatory here. Bears got quite a few people on the injury report. Justin Fields looking to come back this week. I think the Lions have a couple of folks as well that are of key significance on there, but I don't think there's any question about who wins this game here. Now, you got to give the respect to Dan Campbell saying, hey, Bears are a good football team. They can be smash mouth. Got a lot of respect for them. That's not exactly what he said, but he was giving them his credit because he knows NFL is not for long at times, and it's definitely any given Sunday. I'll take the Chargers over the Packers as well. They got Rashawn Gary. The Packers have Rashawn Gary, Jair Alexander, and Quay Walker are questionable, but Keenan Allen and Jalen Guyton are also questionable as well, but I'll definitely take the Chargers in this one. I've also got the Miami Dolphins over the Raiders as well. Now, when you take a look at this injury report, you've got it's really not even for the Raiders. I mean, yeah, Max Crosby was questionable, but when you look at the Dolphins, Tyreek Hill was limited. You have Teron Armstead limited. Devon Achane, of course, he's questionable. If he comes back in this game, I think this game could really get out of hand really quick. Those were the only major ones, Devon Achane, Teron Armstead, and Tyreek Hill. But we'll see how it plays out. I'd love to see Achane play in this game, but Miami over the Raiders. And this is one that kind of feels like it could be a trap game just because, again, it's the NFL, kind of like with Lions and Bears as well. But Miami should roll over this team. No problem. I'm going to take Washington over New York as well. There's a lot of key players for New York banged up. Worst offense in the league at 12 points per game. I understand Washington has shelled out a good bit of their players, especially at the deadline. But if there's one thing that they've got, it's offense because Sam Howell has them clicking. Eric Bieniemy has Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders clicking offensively. I'm going to take Dallas over Carolina. Dallas is just fully healthy. Carolina is one of the worst offenses and also one of the worst teams in the NFL, unfortunately, with the number one pick in Bryce Young. I'll take the Jags over the Titans as well. Pretty self-explanatory. I think the Jags will bounce back in this game. Are the Jags at home? Yes, they are. Jags are at home. I think they'll bounce back in this game after getting the break speed off of them by a Niners team who was mad. They were pissed. They were fresh off the bye. 3 straight losses. They had everybody back. Debo, Trent Williams, Brock Purdy was healthy. So I'm not going to, completely hold their feet to the fire, but I will take the Jags over the Titans. Now, Houston over Arizona. I think this game could go either way, possibly, because you've got these injuries for Houston. Dameon Pierce is out. Henry To'oTo'o is out with a concussion. Jimmy Ward is out with a hamstring. Dameon Pierce out with an ankle. Will Anderson's questionable, and so is Noah Brown, both with knee injuries as well. We saw Kyler Murray come back. He played well against Atlanta for what it's worth. They are a 2-8 team. Arizona, the Texans are a 5-4 football team. And, I do believe they are better than Arizona, but I think we could see a nice little friendly Kyler Murray, CJ Stroud duel here, but I'm going to take Houston, no question. Going to take San Francisco over Tampa Bay. Both teams are mostly healthy, but San Fran, definitely feels like they're back. They're rolling. They're at home. So I think that's an easy pick there. I'm going to take the Bills over the Jets. Now, the Jets could easily steal this one as well. Of course, they did it in week 1 when Josh Allen melted again via turnovers. Buffalo's at home in this game. So I believe that Buffalo will be able to take this one home as well. But watch out for those Jets to stifle Josh Allen like they did in week 1. I'm sure we're not going to see a punt return for a touchdown, but I'll take the Bills over the Jets and iffy pick there. Seahawks over the Rams. I think this will be a good one as well, but I do believe that just the Seahawks are a better team at 6-3. Rams are 3-6. Matt Stafford really trying to stay healthy on the year. Sean McVay doing all he can with one of the youngest, most inexperienced rosters in the league, still coaching his ass off. And then I'll take the Broncos. Again, I want to take the Vikings and Josh Dobbs because they've been very impressive, but they did beat the Falcons and the Saints. 2 good defense, but both defenses that are reeling extremely. Now they both officially have questions at the quarterback position in the middle of the season, as if they didn't already walking in. And again, you could say the Broncos barely beat the Packers. They beat them 19-17. If Sky Moore would have caught that pass, it would have been a much different football game. We're probably talking 24-17 because they're going to go for 2 to make it a 1-score game. And then the Bills had 12 men on the field when Will Lutz missed the kick. So you could say that Denver shouldn't have won any of those games. They shouldn't be hot. Well, they did win them. They are hot. They're at home, and I'm going to take them over the Vikings. This will be a good football game. And then we have the Super Bowl rematch of last year, Super Bowl 57, Eagles and Chiefs. I'm going to take the Eagles over the Chiefs in this one. Now, Kansas City is at home, but I said it earlier in the year that the Eagles were going to take this revenge game. Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Nick Sirianni, Andy Reid, all the Eagles, all the Chiefs. And it's just going to be a great matchup. So give me the Eagles over the Chiefs. Give me the Broncos, the Seahawks, the Bills, the Niners. Give me the Texans, the Jaguars, the Cowboys, the Commanders. Give me the Dolphins, the Chargers, the Lions, the Steelers, and the Ravens for my Week 11 picks here on the NFL with AJL. And this has been episode 53 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate everybody hopping into the show tonight. Hope you had a great Friday. Hope you enjoyed the show as Thanksgiving again is coming up. Please make sure to like and share the stream wherever you guys are watching. Please make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Y'all have been crushing it for me as always on all social media platforms. Again, share the stream before you get out of here with someone who loves the NFL, someone who might love me, or someone who might love the podcast. You never know, but either way, I appreciate the hell out of you guys. At the NFL with AJL, hashtag the NFL with AJL on all social media platforms. If you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. We'll be back on Tuesday with episode 54. As always, I love you, I need you, and I will see you guys